in this conversation, for the most part, we're going to be talking about Arometrix fraction finder product, and the extraction finder, which is a new product.
Right.
But do both of those use the same some kind of fluorescent spectroscopy? What I'm remembering something from Dr. Kenneth Bunn. I was too lost in his brown eyes and his woolly beard to really follow. But fluorescent spectroscopy, do I have that right? Or am I making that up?
No, that's correct. It's fluorescent spectroscopy. There's several different fields of spectroscopy. We're specifically focusing on fluorescent spectroscopy.
While the process is happening, we're monitoring what's happening. How does that differ from what people think of as cannabis testing usually? So when people talk about I'm testing an extract, they're talking usually about taking a sample to a lab and checking the actual constituents of that sample for a quantitative analysis. Tell me the difference in ethos, just as we're talking about the Arometrix process. How is this different?
Right. So a lot of people will confuse the fraction finder and HPLCs. Like I was kind of alluding to before, we use fluorescent spectroscopy, where HPLCs generally use absorption spectroscopy. So there's a lot of fundamental science differences, but the use cases are really important. So for HPLCs, you will quantitate the potency of your materials, of your sample. With the fraction finder, it's a qualitative metric. So it's not giving you the potency percentage, but it's giving you the relative changes of that intensity and concentration of a specific molecule over time throughout a process.
Would you say that you're monitoring the process or you're monitoring the product when this happens, or is it really both?
It's really both, because we are monitoring the product. So we're looking at, let's say you're running an extraction, we're looking at those CBDA levels, chlorophyll levels, and in some cases lipid levels. And we're actually seeing the relative changes of those levels over time. So you're seeing it increase and decrease, and you're using those relative changes as the monitoring of the process. So
right.
What we're really doing, and the real value of it, is process indication. So it's telling you, it's almost like I compare it a lot to a GPS for driving. So yeah, you can drive to let's say Florida without a GPS, let's say. But especially
Speak for yourself.
Some experienced drivers can, just like some experienced distillers have the feeling or believe that they can run a short path distillation without the fraction finder, which they can. It has worked well in the past. They can check vapor head temp and color changes, and they have SOPs that they've just done years and years after experience. But maybe, going back to the driver analogy, maybe you can, let's say, drive to Florida without, missing a turn. Maybe you do miss a turn one of those trips. So what it really is doing, the GPS, is preventing you from a bottleneck, from making a wrong turn. And especially for new drivers trying to go to Florida, I'm not even a new driver. I wouldn't be able to drive to Florida. So
yeah, having those, it's interesting because there is a little bit, and a little bit of what you said speaks to something that's always challenging. I think specifically in cannabis, but I'm sure that it's present just because humanity is humanity, right? Cannabis doesn't make us different people. But in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of, there can be a lot of ego in the extraction lab, and a lot of, I don't need those tools. I can look at it and tell you whether or not I'm hitting the right fraction. And I'm certain, I believe them that they have so much experience that they can identify when an extraction is, or when a distillation process is going well or not. And I don't know when the last time they had their eyes calibrated for molecular analysis, but tools are helpful. Good tools are helpful. I think the car analogy works for everything. I can't think of a situation where a car analogy doesn't work. Another car analogy is if you look inside the cockpit of a high performance race car, he has more dials than I have. That's not because I'm a better driver and need fewer dials on my 2015 Toyota Highlander that I'm taking to the grocery store and then to pick up the kids. It's that those inform what he's doing on a level that I don't really get. You know what I mean? And so more the more intensely you want to optimize your process, you can't do that without data. And data has to come from some sort of data acquisition system, and your eyes are a good start, but that's not always data. Sometimes that's perception. But I think that we need to get out of the place where we're saying I'm putting this monitor on here, or I'm putting this pump on here, and that's going to move product around, and that's getting rid of a person. No, it's not. It's freeing up that person to do higher level things and to optimize the process even further.
Exactly. And the more you can automate, what's really interesting to me and what really jazzed me about joining Arometrix was the idea of that you can automate manual tasks, that you can then, once automated, focus on doing other things that help improve the quality of your end product.
The first product or the first test case, your use case you used with a fraction finder, what was the first application?
Yeah, so the first application was in 2017 in California on working with a couple of Summit Research's clients. And I believe it was NorCal Analytical and NUG also as well.
But it was on a short path distillation, and what we would consider, Summit or Lab Society benchtop short path with a boiling flask and condenser, and that is that right?
Exactly.
And what were you looking for?
So what we were looking for was process indicators. So we weren't even necessarily looking for a unique identification of compounds. And if you read our research paper, we kind of mentioned that as future work. At that point, we were looking for really simple, the three main distillation fractions: heads, main bodies, and tails. And so we tested each sample with an EMS, and then we were able to develop an in situ sensor that was basically calibrated to detect heads, main bodies, and tails. So after short path, we focused on being able to integrate with not just Summit's short path, but other size short paths. And we made different adapters to allow us to do that. And then white film, we made an actual pure path adapter. That's what it's called on our website, or Rotavis adapter. I'd have to check. But that allowed us to integrate into white film. And at that point, we were just trying to see what was going on in each line of the white film. And then we started to test it for extraction, so ethanol extraction. And shout out to AMP Equipment and Mac Bunbury, who at the time was working for Timeless Vapes, Timeless Refinery. They were really the ones, and with each of these applications, they were really our customers were the ones that really led us along to get the system to work for those applications. So those collaborations were vital to getting to this point. So what we can detect now is fool's gold, which is something that we found comes off right at the end of your head fraction during short path distillation. Nobody knows what the actual chemical constituent of fool's gold is. A lot of people have guesses.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter to us because we're just using it as a process.
And why is it fool's gold? Tell me what.
Good question. So
because it seems like it's the end of the heads before the mains, but it isn't.
Exactly. So people, like I was saying before, processors were looking at color changes to judge heads, main bodies, and tails transitions. So the gold is an indicator of your main body fraction. However, and people in the industry are, know about fool's gold. It's not like we discovered fool's gold. But it does look just like your desirable cannabinoid.
Mhm.
but it's something else. It's not that. And if you have that in your end product, it could lower the potency a little bit.
Interesting. Interesting. Two products that we want to talk about. The fraction finder is one. A fraction finder is going to go on a short path. It'll go on a wiped film, a distillation apparatus. Where else is the fraction finder going? Did I already cover it?
Yeah, you covered all of those.
Okay.
A few people have thrown it on color remediation columns,
Interesting.
um, but we've actually come out with an ultra version of the sensor for specifically for chromatography.
Interesting. Okay. And we're going to call that something different.
We call it the Fraction Finder Ultra.
Okay.
And with each of these packages, we have the Fraction Finder, the Extraction Finder, Fraction Finder Ultra. It's all the same display and same software. However, the sensor and the way that the sensor is installed on the system is different for each of them.
Tell me about COVID and what that's like from a business standpoint for you guys.
Yeah, so from a personal standpoint, COVID is, yeah, definitely my heart goes out to anyone and whose family who has been seriously affected by it. From a business perspective, it changed pretty much our whole plan for 2020.
Because you guys
Which
were road warriors. You guys were at every show I was at. And when I wasn't at a show and I was lurking around to see who was there, you guys were always at every single one.
it's definitely changed the whole dynamic of kind of our exposure to customers. Now
Yeah.
we're and I think I've mentioned to you in the past, we have these group chats now where we're able to directly interact with our users. It's something that not only me but our whole technical team is a part of. So they're actually have their personal accounts that are included in those chats. And just to step back, so we basically had a plan for the year that was like, we're going to release a benchtop potency analyzer.
Hmm.
Everyone is really interested in potency, but lab tests take long to do, and
Sure.
these lab equipment for potency analysis are really expensive. So it's really hard for small and mid-sized processors to be able to have that type of equipment. So we were going to make an offer, a product offer that was roughly the same price of the fraction finder, a little bit more, that was able to, we were calling it the benchmarker. Um, and that was going to be able to give you your potency before distillation, after distillation. So kind of
Sure.
do what I mentioned before, which was getting data for each process point so you
Hmm.
know what to do better.
And this would be a quantitative analysis,
Exactly. Yep. So
percent
that
something, percent THC, CBD, something like that.
exactly.
Hmm.
And so basically once COVID happened, we put a pause on that project. We still plan to eventually work on it once we can.
Those, you invited me to one of those group chats, and there are some heavy hitters on there. I mean, there are some um there's a couple of people in particular whose consulting services I've recommended. Somebody will say, how do you make some D8? How do you do this? How do you do that? This is the guy I would pay to teach me if I wanted to learn. You have people on there who charge a lot of money for consulting, who are just happy to wax poetic all day long and answer people's questions. And it's a pretty beautiful thing. How have those group chats helped inform your design and engineering uh, revisions?
We designed them so that we could not necessarily create a new product, but to validate new applications that people were interested in. So like I mentioned before, a lot of our customers had been using the fraction finder for chromatography, delta 9 remediation, reverse phase, normal phase, color remediation, lipids removal, all this types of chromatography. And our concern was that the sensor wasn't sensitive enough for some of those applications. So what we did was we put together fraction finder for chromatography group chat. I believe that was the first, if I remember correctly. And we announced it on Instagram. We thought maybe 4 or 5 people would want to join. And we were flooded with messages asking to join. And so what that did was that allowed us to get direct and immediate feedback from customers that were already R&D partners or new on R&D partners on testing this new sensor for chromatography.
Mm-hmm.
And hence the Fraction Finder Ultra was productized.
I love that. I love that. It's definitely been a strange year. And I love the pivot towards your focus groups, if I want to call it that, your group chats on Instagram. And how would somebody, if somebody wanted to be involved in one of those kind of deep dive focus groups, and they didn't mind getting notifications at all hours from cannabis consultants who are geniuses, but who also, what do these people do? Why is it 2:00 in the morning, Photon? Why? Why? Why am I getting a ding then? But if somebody wanted to be involved, how would they do that?
So you would just DM us on Instagram, comment on a post. We're always monitoring Instagram. Of course, message us on Future 4200 or add us on Future 4200. Call us, email us, text us. You can text our phone extension or our company line.
I love that.
And that goes to the whole team. And yeah, I mean, just ask. Not at first, we intended it to be for specific to Fraction Finder users.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we know that not everyone in the chat has a Fraction Finder, and that doesn't really matter because that doesn't mean that they can't provide insight as to what's going on. Now we're seeing people not just buy the Fraction Finder for SurePath or white film, but also extraction and chromatography. People are really, really interested in it for chromatography.
So let's dive into that a little bit, and let's pick chromatography. If I put the extraction finder or Fraction Finder Ultra, which one would I use on chromatography?
You would use the Ultra.
Okay, if I put the Ultra on my chromatography column, tell me where I'm putting it on my column and what talk me through it. What am I looking for? What am I going to see? What am I after?
Yeah, so what you're going to do is you're going to take the sensor and attach it onto the very bottom of your column, just before your collection point. So you're going to put it right at the bottom of the column, and you're going to see as each fraction elutes out of the column. So let's say you're running reverse phase chromatography, which is really common for delta 9 remediation, so that your CBD is not hot and passes all the tests that you need to. You'll put the fraction finder at the bottom. You'll see as CBD starts to come out, and then you'll see that change from CBD to THC, and you'll see as THC starts to come out, so that you can have an optimal separation. So, CBD has a unique signal on the fraction finder. THC has a unique signal on the fraction finder. They're both at I don't want to get too technical, but they're both at the same wavelength region on the fraction finder, which doesn't really matter because they have different wave forms.
And it's hard because you're looking for two molecules that are extremely similar.
Oh yeah, think of it kind of like they're twins basically. It's very hard to distinguish between the two of them. And for SurePath, we got a lot of questions to see if we could distinguish the two during SurePath, during white film, and we can't really because they don't, for those processes, they don't elute at separate times. They pretty much boil off together.
Right.
But during chromatography, THC elutes, depending on which type of chromatography, THC elutes way before CBD. So you're able to see those unique, that process indicator of the change in the waveform from CBD to THC or vice versa.
How would you use the extraction finder?
Yeah, so there's a couple places that you can put it depending on what you're looking for. You can put it right after your filtration. So that's after your extraction, because it can monitor lipids, so fat levels. But most people will put it right near their recirculation area. So what that's doing is that's telling you when your ethanol has saturated. So your solvent is done extracting all those cannabinoids from that plant material.
Okay.
And that's the main use case for it.
Huge process indicator. I think that there's a lot of ways that we need to be using tools just to get sharper and sharper and sharper, because the margins are not going up. The margins will continue to go down. and there's still going to be a lot of money in it if we do it right.
Exactly. And standard operating procedures shouldn't be the same year over year over year. You should be refining it every single year and,
Mhm.
on a weekly, monthly basis, whatever it is, trying to, you know, make it as best as possible.
Yeah.
Strive for perfection. And that will really help with costs, revenue,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and kind of this whole idea of everyone at the company trying to find ways to do better.
Yeah. And that's really that constant improvement mindset, and lean manufacturing, just constantly getting better, that we're never just going to rest on last year's achievement. We want to make it better every time.
Exactly. And it's something that, a lot of not just Arometrix, but a lot of other leaders in the industry have been doing. Summit, for example, is the first one that comes to mind with their ShorePath glassware, their heads, year after year, just not relying on, last year's
Yeah.
revision, but
Yeah.
trying to come out with something new that beats last year. You're always
Yeah.
trying to beat yourself, not your competitor.
Especially in a hectic, intense, new market, emerging market like cannabis, we're so busy just meeting current demand that we're not doing the constant improvement that we really need to do to give our customers the best value. So kudos to you guys, and you're under great leadership with Tim. Um, your whole team is really pretty fantastic. So
Oh,
kudos
thank
to you
you.
guys for using this time to make sure that you've got an offering that's relevant to the customer.
Oh yeah, and our whole team loves you. Kenneth loves you.
I knew
I
I
was
liked you guys for a reason. Now I know why. I thought it was all the fluorescent spectroscopy, but nope, it's just a mutual admiration society, and I'm
Oh my
invited.
gosh. Tim Collins, CEO of Arometrix, also CEO of Digivac, also talented sailor,
Yeah,
great snowboarder,
yeah, yeah,
and good mentor to me. He's really definitely helped from kind of a business side and customer solution side, really mentor me. And Kenneth and
yeah,
Chris on the science side, they've taught me so much more than I
yeah.
ever thought I could have ever learned.
Doing all this stuff. Tell me about the Dab app. What's that? What's that about?
The DAB app stands for Data Analysis Breakdown app. It's basically our data review companion app for the Fraction Finder or
Awesome.
any of our technologies.
Okay, so I'm
Um,
gonna have that. Is it an app like I'm thinking, like on my phone? Is it something that I'm gonna download on my computer? Tell me what I'm doing with it.
yeah, so you'll download it on your computer to start. Right now it's in beta form, so we actually have a group chat set up for that, for
Nice,
beta testing that.
nice.
That for that it's mainly users who are actually beta testing it. And so you'll install it on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
You'll load your Fraction Finder run data that you've already uploaded to your computer
Mm-hmm.
onto the app, and you'll replay basically the entire run and zoom in, learn more about any point in time of the run.
FDA Chapter 21. Um, I don't know the subsection, but this sort of product is, I think, going to be required in when we're FDA compliant, and we have to be GMP certified. Having having process indicators, and then being able to record that data in a secure format and archive it. And so the whole batch, has a history. Most pharmaceuticals have a batch associated, and they can go back to any part of that batch and get the analytics for that batch. As
Gotcha.
we move towards GMP, and I think we're 6 years away from GMP requirements, to tell you the truth. Some people don't like that, but I don't think the FDA is ready to take this on. But that would be interesting to know. But I could see how you could make the extraction finder
Yeah,
required
yeah.
use.
I think as regulations get more strict, regulators might want to require it or some sort of analytics for each
Along the
stage of
way.
the process,
Mm-hmm.
it would certainly be more affordable to use the extraction finder for that purpose.
Yeah. When you're talking about the relationship between quality, throughput, and yield, and in the processes that we're talking about, um, if you want, it's that old adage, you can have it fast, you can have it. There's fast, cheap, and quality, high quality. Pick two, because you can't have all three. Right? So you can have it fast and high quality, but it's going to be super expensive. You can have it fast and cheap, but it's going to be low quality. You can have it high quality and inexpensive, but it's going to maybe take a long time. I think that your little trifecta here was quality, yield, and throughput. And I,
Right.
I think that that is so key, because can you get a higher quality extract if absolutely positively getting all the cannabinoids you can in your distillation process? Yes, you might get 5% more cannabinoids and it might take you 25% longer. Was that really worth it? So did that really help in your throughput? You can go faster and you can process more, but you might have a 20% loss. Was that really worth it? In terms of your yields, you can get a higher yield, but it's going to take you a longer time. Is that worth it? And how do you make those decisions without hard data? How do you make those decisions without data that is from run to run to run to run to run, comparing and looking at those things? And I really think that that's what the Arometrix suite of products is trying to do. It's trying to inform the processor, the lab manager, inform these higher level discussions about process optimization and quality and throughput, um, so that they can make those decisions and make those adjustments.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it when you said that we're talking about the triangle, it reminds me of back to grad school when they were like, you can either get a high GPA, you can have a social life, or you can get sleep.
But you
You
can't have
can't
it
get
all. Pick two.
yeah, exactly. Pick two
Pick
of the
two.
three.
Yeah.
And so I just said goodbye to sleep.
All right, my friend. I appreciate you so much. This is a great kickoff to the weekend for me. All right, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right, talk
Say hi
soon.
to
Great talking to you.
everybody on your team for me. I appreciate them all so much.
All right, I will do it. You do the same.
All right, take care.